Welcome to Rocky Watches Movies. You thought you knew everything about Blade? Think again. Today we're diving deep into the 1998 classic that launched a superhero franchise. We're uncovering secrets, hidden details, and behind-the-scenes tidbits that might just blow your mind. So let's get on with it and jump into 18 things you never knew about Blade. Blade from the big screen and Blade from the comics differ somewhat. Both are human-vampire hybrids, inheriting the strengths of each kind. However, their weaknesses diverge a bit. Movie Blade wrestles with a constant thirst for human blood, relying on immense willpower to risk the urge. Comic Blade has another weakness as well: red sunlight. While he can tolerate some sunlight, those crimson rays do weaken him. While Stephen Norrington, a special effects whiz with a love for horror, ended up bringing Blade to life, the director's chair wasn't always his. Screenwriter David S. Goyer revealed that David Fincher, fresh off the success of Seven, was initially attached to the project and had helped him to develop the script. Blade features many memorable vampires, but none quite like Pearl, the giant vampire tortured by Blade with a UV light. An earlier draft of the screenplay revealed that Pearl's enormous size resulted from his addiction to eating children and infants, particularly relishing their hearts. To emphasise this, Pearl's lair was initially intended to be strewn with the corpses of his victims, with stray hearts scattered across the floor. However, this concept was deemed too dark and was ultimately scrapped. Eric Edwards, the actor who portrayed Pearl, mentioned that in one draft they even considered placing a young boy across Pearl's stomach. And staying on the subject of Pearl, all of the special effects were done practically. That meant Eric Edwards had to wear a massive costume. However, it was a more complicated process than most probably think. The suit was this huge contraption where it had a floor that was on hydraulics that they would lower down, the actor has said. I would get in, I would sit in first, and the guy who played my left arm would come in, the guy who played my right arm would come in, then they would raise us up, lock it, and once I was in, they would attach my head to the body of this huge suit. And that, I think, took 45 minutes to an hour to do, and then it only took like 15 minutes to pop off. Disney Channel icon Brenda Song had a brush with death in the film. She played the uncredited role of the scared child Deacon Frost held hostage in the Chinese garden scene, the one he ultimately throws to the streets. The original ending of Blade envisioned Frost morphing into a grotesque swirling mass of blood. However, this idea, deemed weak by some of the creative team from the script stage, was thankfully scrapped. In its place, the final cut delivered a thrilling sword fight between Blade and a possessed Frost, a scene much better received by fans. Morbius, otherwise known as the Living Vampire, has battled Blade many times, so much so that Blade's first sequel was supposed to see him face off against the tragically cursed scientist again. Unfortunately, Morbius became part of Sam Raimi's plans for his Spider-Man series, and so was taken off the table as far as Blade was concerned. Still, the vampire we see perched on the rooftop in Blade's original ending was supposed to be Dr. Morbius. Blade director Stephen Norrington couldn't resist a vampire bite of his own, making a cameo as a fanger on the prowl. Watch closely as Officer Krieger zooms by, and you might catch Norrington sinking his teeth into a woman on the sidewalk. Stan Lee, a Marvel mainstay, also filmed a scene as a cop, witnessing the aftermath of the Blood Club fight, specifically Quinn's flaming demise. Sadly, Lee's cameo met the cutting room floor for unknown reasons. While English dominates the dialogue in Blade, the vampires occasionally slip into their own entirely fictional tongue. This chilling language, crafted by linguistics professor Victoria Fromkin, who was also responsible for the lizard language in Land of the Lost, aimed to evoke both sophistication and menace. Fromkin drew inspiration from Transylvania, weaving in vaguely Russian and Czech sounds to create the perfect blend. While the final cut of Blade is great, it was a hard road to go down for producer Robert Engelman. One of the biggest issues was director Norrington. He was an unbelievable nightmare to work with, the producer has said. He was completely crazy and imbalanced. For Engelman, it was a truly bizarre experience filled with highs and lows. One of Blade's most striking visual elements was the intricate ink that covered his body. These tattoos weren't just random designs, they were the brainchild of the director Stephen Norrington, who personally drew them for Wesley Snipes. One of Blade's great quotes is,
"Some motherfucker always trying to ice skate uphill."
But it wasn't actually an invention of the screenwriter. Instead, it was something that Wesley Snipes said during an early morning production meeting, which made the whole crew laugh out loud. Norrington immediately asked Snipes for his permission to put the phrase into the script. Long before Marvel superheroes dominated pop culture, Blade emerged in the murky waters of 90s superhero cinema. Even the character himself wasn't a household name. So it's not surprising that when Wesley Snipes was first approached about the part of Blade, he had no familiarity with the character. Instead of drawing from the source material, he decided to draw on his knowledge of black exploitation films and play Blade as, in his words, a cool guy in an awesome outfit who had great martial arts moves. A Blade movie actually took a number of attempts to get made, with the rights changing hands multiple times. Marvel attempted to get a project off the ground during the early 1990s, which had a completely different tone and cast to the 98 version we ended up with. During pre-production, it was rapper and actor LL Cool J who was reported to have been interested in playing the Vampire Slayer. Another what could have been, when New Line Cinema finally managed to get a Blade film greenlit and all the way into production, they were insistent that the role should be given to either Wesley Snipes, Denzel Washington, or Lawrence Fishburne. They got their wish when Wesley Snipes agreed to take on the role of the most perfectly engineered vampire hunter. For the villainous Deacon Frost, Jet Li was initially considered, but he opted for Lethal Weapon 4 instead. While it's impossible to know for sure, the thought of a Jet Li versus Denzel Washington showdown in a Blade film remains a tantalising what-if. Donald Logue, who portrayed Deacon Frost's formidable right-hand man Quinn, took method acting to a whole new level. While filming a scream scene, he accidentally dislocated his jaw, an old injury that had flared up. Luckily, they were in a hospital at the time, but the shoot was taking place in an abandoned wing, and so he had to be rushed to the real hospital instead. I've got this guy who's dressed as a third-degree burns victim, essentially naked, running in with his jaw hanging down, recalled director Stephen Norrington. Despite receiving screen credits for creating Blade, writers Marv Wolfman and artist Gene Colan weren't satisfied with the compensation offered by Marvel. They took legal action, seeking a larger share of the film's box office success. However, their lawsuit was ultimately unsuccessful. Blade's initial test screenings received a brutal reception. Audiences found the villain, particularly with its CGI effects, more comical than menacing. This negative feedback triggered extensive reshoots and edits, pushing back the film's release by 6 months. The reshoots not only revamped the villain, but also removed the Morbius tease intended to set up the sequel. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about Blade. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.